So if you're just joining us, we are here at VAC Foundation, Zatre in Venice, Italy. We are part of the Non-Extractive Architecture exhibition, laboratory, residency program, and several volume book. We're here over the course of the year with Space Caviar and a group of 11 research residents studying non-extractive architecture, case studies, materials, policies, labor practices, community initiatives, and design strategies all working towards the non-extractive. We're so pleased and excited to have Simon Caspersen of Space 10 here with us today. I'll just read a little bit of your bio. Simon Caspersen is the co-founder and communications director of Space 10, IKEA's global research and design lab on a mission to create better everyday life for people and the planet. Space 10 researches and designs innovative solutions to some of the major shifts expected to affect people and our planet in the years to come. Simon leads key strategic communications initiatives to ensure projects reach beyond Space 10 to create meaningful and widespread impact through storytelling, playful research, sharing solutions, and engaging the best and brightest partners from around the world. Space 10 strives to inspire and engage a global research and design community in the work of Space 10. I think this is so in line with what we're also doing here, and we couldn't be happier to have you here to present the future. So thank you so much, and I'll hand it over to you. Again, if you're just joining us, feel free to add any questions and answers to the Q&A tab, and we'll get to those after the lecture. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction. Always sounds crazy when actually being introduced to what we do. But hi everyone, my name is Simon, and it's such an honor to be here. I was really happy about the invitation, and unfortunately not being able to make it physically, but as most of you joined digitally anyway, I think we're good. I love the theme and the whole ethos behind this program, so I'm just really excited to be part of it. But let's get this show rolling. I'm just gonna share my screen. So our shared home of tomorrow. Yeah, so maybe let us kick off with a quick intro. I'm from Space 10. Space 10 is a research and design laboratory. We are based in the heart of Copenhagen, Denmark, but we have also popped up in other cities around the world, like New York, London, Shanghai, Nairobi, and New Delhi, to name a few. We are fully funded by IKEA, a rather successful home furnishing company. So why the heck am I invited to talk about architecture? Good question. Actually, at Space 10, we research and design beyond the current concept of IKEA. We are set up to look into everything from new advanced technologies to the future food, to how we democratize access to clean energy, as well as self-driving cars have caught our interest. And that's because our starting point with our work is actually never IKEA, but the world and how the world is changing. So we actually explore the big macro trends that will impact all of us, or most of us, and try and see if we can find some patterns in that chaos and design a more desirable future. And architecture and city development is one of the themes that have really caught our interest. And that's because we can just see that 1.5 million people move into an urban area every week, which means that cities are rapidly becoming the shared home of humanity. And cities has also become the center of some of the biggest challenges that we face as a human race. And there's going to be a clear link in terms of how we choose to design and develop and refine our cities going forward, and the fate of humanity. So if we look at some of the challenges, at least the ones that we find worrying, is that we lack affordable housing in almost every major city in the world. Simply put, we aren't building enough affordable homes to keep up with the demand. And without action, 1.6 billion, not million, billion people will lack access to affordable, adequate, and secure housing by 2030. Second challenge is that we're facing an accelerating climate crisis while we are at the same time overstretching the finite resources of our planet. And cities are right there at the heart of the problem. Cities account for 75% of resource consumption and 80% of emissions. And especially the construction industry is incredibly harmful. It accounts for more than 35% of global energy use and nearly 40% of CO2 emissions. And with so many people moving to a city every week, and they will continue to do so, the emergency only looks to get a lot worse. Don't worry, this will not be like a completely depressing presentation. It's Friday, so don't worry. Hold on. But we have a challenge more, and that is despite we all living closer and closer together and are more connected than ever before, we are feeling increasingly lonely, anxious, and stressed in our cities. The air is polluted and the soundscapes are stressful. And in fact, city dwellers have 40% increased risk of depression. So the big question is, where do we actually go from here? Well, we can continue on this well-trodden path that we are on today and just do more of the same till shit hits the fan, or we can explore a new way forward, a better way forward. And there's no doubt that the challenges are extensive, but so are the opportunities. And we have actually never been better equipped as a human species to take on the challenges that we face and design a more desirable home within our cities. We recently released a book, The Ideal City, where it was an excuse for us to take a very holistic and multidisciplinary approach to find better ways forward for a shared home, the city. And we started by asking ourselves, what kind of cities do we actually want to live in? What do we believe is important for a good life? And what makes a good home for all of us? And as always at Space 10, we like to surround ourselves with people who are smarter than us. So we engaged people who inspire us and trying to bring in the best and brightest visionaries from multiple disciplines. So everyone from legendary urban designer Jan Gehl to transportation entrepreneur Robin Chase, from Starchitect Bjarke Engels to the interdisciplinary design studio Urban Think Tank, from the big players like UN Habitat to as small as a community-led alternative policing program in an indigenous region of Canada. So getting these diverse perspectives from all of these bright minds, we then strive to see some patterns in that chaos. So the book strives to rethink how we design, build, and share our cities going forward, with the aim to design cities as places that feel better for more people. Cities that are greener, healthier, more sustainable, inclusive, and safe. Cities that boost our quality of life, ensure more fulfilling ways of living together, and provide more opportunities for a wider range of people. Cities that foster community, creativity, and sharing, and cities that are more resilient and economically productive while they tackle the climate crisis head on. And it's just important for me to say that we don't believe in one ideal city, and we don't believe that we have found all the answers, but we have humbly strived to collect projects that inspire us and demonstrate how cities today can both support the well-being of people and the planet. So we feature projects from 53 cities around the world. And I think what's most interesting today is actually the 5 guiding principles that we believe should steer city development going forward. And you could say these 5 guiding principles was really how we put the book together. And the first one was the principle of cities being resourceful. A city should ideally be self-sufficient and circular. That means both ecologically and economically sustainable and ideally regenerative. A city needs to be accessible, so built for diversity, inclusion, and equality while providing affordable housing for all in mixed neighborhoods. A city should be shared. A city should encourage a sense of community, collaboration, and togetherness. And here we look at everything from co-living communities to shared mobility. A city should be safe. It should have trust between the members of the communities. It should also be resilient to climate change, extreme weather events, and providing safety for all, not just the majority of people or a privileged few. And we believe more in crime prevention and rehabilitation than punishment. Finally, a city should be desirable. It should be a pleasure to be in, designed on a human scale, making everything accessible within a 15-minute walk. So it's a city that encourages the playful side of humans by promoting curiosity, wonder, and discovery. It should nurture a vibrant public life with access to culture, art, and activities, as well as appealing public spaces for relaxation, well-being, and learning. But besides this book, as ideal as it sounds, we've actually tried to visualize a vision for how these principles could be implemented into the urban fabric in one cohesive concept. And we call that project the Urban Village Project. And the Urban Village Project is basically a vision for how we create both livable, affordable, and sustainable homes of tomorrow. When we talk about livability, affordability, and sustainability, we see a lot of these words being used, but it's very rare that they are actually combined. If a concept is really sustainable, it's often not affordable, and vice versa. So how we envision that to happen is basically that we don't think of the urban village project as a single building or a construction project, but as a flexible modular building system. So more than a building set, think of it as a Lego set where different bricks can be added according to local needs and dreams. And we really look into the whole shared living idea, where we combine private living with shared spaces so that we actually prioritize access over ownership. So with the Urban Village Project, we envisioned that we could give access to shared facilities, spaces, mobility, and the services that keep you close to what you need on a daily basis. So whether that is groceries or healthcare, daycare, gardening, fitness, groceries, whatever. The idea is that instead of everyone having to own and store all the same items, that we instead share more, pool resources, and become a lot more self-sufficient where we live. So we propose to actually mix home, work, leisure, and shopping within the village, because we also realize that if people are physically close to the things that they want and need in their daily life, we end up using a lot fewer resources and create a much better everyday life for people, as they can conduct their routine lives within a 15-minute walk from their home. And what we see today is that we can have really sustainable buildings with all the right labels. But if people have to commute in gasoline monsters to go to work or to pick up groceries, then it doesn't really matter how energy efficient the home is if you need to drive halfway across town to get to what you need. Besides this, we're also looking to actually create the opportunity for people to be part of a vibrant community and enjoy a social lifestyle where they live. We realize that the quality of our relationships often define how happy we are, no matter your income, job, social status, health situation. Actually, if we measure on happiness, we can see that it's very tied to the quality of our relationships. And shared living especially has been found to boost both health and happiness. So with the Urban Village project, we're looking into how we can offer a variety of public and shared spaces that really inject life into the local area and strengthening the sense of community where we live. Besides that, you can also see that the urban village is designed on a human scale. And we may come from different cultures and climates, but at the end of the day, we're all the same species. We walk at the same pace and we enjoy our environments through the same five senses. So we suggest building cities that feel good to be in for Homo sapiens, cities that activate all our senses, and neighborhood that looks good, feels good, smells nice, and with soundscapes that are actually pleasant for the human ear. But we also realize that one size doesn't fit all. So we actually propose offering multiple apartment types instead of standard family homes. Like we're still designing for the nuclear family, but since the 50s, like people don't live with their families till they get married anymore, and people get divorced and stuff like that. So if life happens and you need a different living space, you could simply stay in your community by swapping apartments with others also looking for a change. So this way we can actually also ensure more diverse neighborhoods with apartments for different income levels and needs. If we look at materials, then we envision our homes to be made out of organic materials. In this case, cross-laminated timber. And wood as a construction material actually comes with huge environmental advantages and at the same time outperforms both steel and concrete on multiple levels, which is sort of the workhorse material of today. But where steel and concrete are massive drivers of CO2 emissions and pollution, wood and other organic materials like bamboo, if we were building in Asia, for instance, where that would be locally abundant. These organic materials actually reduce air pollution and do not create excess waste. And an advantage of designing flexible modular architecture is that it can actually be prefabricated and mass produced, which would then actually also drive construction prices down and allow for more affordable homes to enter the market. And besides the price point and the ability to do prefabricated mass production of these modules, it also means that we actually design for buildings that can be easily assembled, disassembled, and reassembled, just like Lego, which means that we can actually unlock a circular material loop where components and materials can be repaired or replaced over the lifespan of a building. And in these modular systems, when a building outgrows its original function, it's not doomed for the landfill. Instead of being torn down, it can actually be adapted and repurposed. So not only would this benefit the planet by minimizing waste, it would also give people a lot more freedom and flexibility. If you have buildings designed for disassemble, it would also be able for the people actually living there to add to or edit their homes as they see fit, which would make integrating floor-to-ceiling window, balconies, or other things that much more doable. But that's not the only way that the urban village envision to address the climate crisis we're in. We're really looking at how can we make a sustainable lifestyle a seamless part of our everyday life through integrated solutions, where a home actually come with integrated solutions like water harvesting, clean energy, good insulation, energy efficient lighting and appliances, local food production, and localized composting. And I mean, this is nothing new. These are all solutions that are right there on the shelves. We just need to prioritize them. And I think the biggest creative challenge that we're really facing today as architects, designers, creatives is how we transform from our current consumption-oriented economy into a lot more circular and regenerative one. And that's also why a sustainable life shouldn't feel like a burden where you're really a hero if you live a sustainable lifestyle. It should just be a natural part of life. So we are really looking at how can we make this seamless. And the crazy thing is that it would not only help our help our care for the planet go up, but it would actually also means that our living costs would go down. And because the urban village is not thought of as a one-off construction project, but more as a standardized modular building system, it means that when we can prefabricate it, mass produce it, and at the end of the day, flat pack it, we're not just building a building or a neighborhood, but a building system that can be implemented everywhere. So it could be as small as a infill to a full-blown village. It could even, in theory, be a vertical village. Despite I'm not a big fan of high rises, it feels like vertical gated communities. But I think that's a discussion for another day. But to wrap up this this talk today, I think what is important, if I can leave you with one thing to remember, is that the path to big systemic change is collective action. And I think if 2020 showed us nothing more, it was that humanity actually have the capacity to respond in solidarity together to our common challenges. And we have now seen and experienced that governments around the world can actually act on a global challenge, and that people can change their behavior in a very short amount of time. And I'm just asking, imagine if we actually kept the spirit of addressing global challenges and refocused it on rethinking our cities to address the climate crisis. What could we actually accomplish together? There's no doubt that we only have one home, and the most important decade in human history have just begun. So the time is really now to start implementing new solutions and rethink how we build, design, plan, and finance our cities going forward. Thank you so much for the invitation. And if you want to keep the dialogue going, or if you're curious about what else that we are cooking at Space 10, please join the conversation on social media, or sign up for our newsletter, visit our website, or all of that. But I think I have talked enough, and I would love to open up the floor for a dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was fantastic. And I think this is just such an exciting and important project. So thank you for sharing the research and proposals with us. I'd like to open it up to the research residents here, and also anyone online for any questions or comments you guys might have. Does anyone want to kick us off from the group? Yeah. I was curious, maybe you could start by saying, I know, oh, Zareth has raised her hand also. But I know that maybe this project, it's begun development, and there are some real world tests of this already started. Maybe you could speak to how it's progressing and what might be the first steps of making this happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is one of the, like, I'm not an architect. So I come with this blessing of having an outside-in view on this whole industry. And I think the first thing that just completely puzzled me was that like the construction industry, for instance, is the least digitized industry after hunting. And to me, it was just so crazy that innovation has happened in sector after sector after sector. And then we were still just caught in this old school, inefficient ways of doing things. And as soon as we had to move from the vision of the urban village into actually bringing it to life, um, we also saw how complicated the whole industry is working. So what we're doing now is that, of course, Space 10 is a small research and design laboratory. We are backed by IKEA, um, and um, and we are, so on one side we are working with them on how we can bring this to life, because there's no doubt that today um, architecture and construction happens on such a local level. Like, it's so scattered. It's local design teams that starts over every time we need to build new. Every building is a unica, and everything is down to local specifications and stuff like that. So there's a huge opportunity to basically disrupt it. So on one hand, we're working with IKEA on how we can actually bring this to life. On the other hand, we are at Space 10 sharing all our research with the public. We believe that we are running out of time, and the more that we can engage and share with others, the better we are off. This is not about IKEA. This is about that actually bringing it to life. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we've just seen now, for instance, been in dialogue with the municipality of Seoul in Korea, where they are taking the project and basically starting to create shared living communities in the city of Seoul. And they are a bit faster than IKEA, I would say. And already now there are buildings built there. But we have also received a lot of traction from China. And basically what we're doing is sharing our insights and learnings and our vision for the homes of tomorrow. And then we see how that is being implemented in cities around the world. So it's really like a distributed model where, yeah, where we believe that the pioneers of today will be the market leaders of tomorrow. So, and if it's not IKEA, I would be happy it was someone else.
Wow, that's really exciting. Yep. Zareth, I know you had raised your hand. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, hi Simon. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was phenomenal. As someone that has really used the autonomous vehicle project as a precedent, I'm currently working on a mobile community center that was a former prison bus. I'm just curious about that project, kind of the intentions behind it, the idea of bringing these activations to commons, and where the project is. Have there been prototypes, and kind of what difficulties have arisen from taking on an autonomous vehicle project that also has community living spaces?
Thanks, Sarah. Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yeah.
Lovely. And also happy that you found interest in the Spaces on Wheels project, where we looked into basically autonomous architecture. The whole project started from whenever we saw companies visualizing the future of autonomous vehicles or self-driving cars. It was all of these really sort of white male visions of the future where everything was super sterile and all the cars looked like cars of today. And we were like, but comparing a self-driving car to a regular car is like comparing a car to a horse. It's something completely different. When vehicles are ready to be fully autonomous, it's no longer cars. It's actually spaces that are able to drive themselves. And as we do with Space 10, we were, to be honest, we were really annoyed with a lot of the visions we saw for the future of mobility and these self-driving cars. yeah, as you mentioned, we then designed our own cars as autonomous architecture, where basically you could yeah, it was basically for functions. So it could be a self-driving cafe, it could be a farm on wheels, it could be so many things. And I actually, even though I claim that we are completely open lab, there are definitely progress on that project. We have actually been invited in by several car manufacturers, and now we're actually working with one of them to yeah, to further this vision. But I just want to say, like, when we talk about the future of our cities, I hope that the future of mobility will not be self-driving cars, but rather our legs and bikes. I hope that we will actually design cities where everything is available within a 15-minute walk. If not, then a bike. If not, then public transport. So I think we are at a quite interesting time when it comes to self-driving cars, because I see a huge opportunity in that. Something where we can basically have a fleet of autonomous vehicles that can bring us from A to B. But what I believe is really important is that instead of politicians taking this let's wait and see approach as they're doing now and just let the tech giants do their thing, instead I think we need really progressive politicians right now saying that we demand that all of these self-driving cars run on clean energy, that they are thought as shared mobility, so public transport, and that we start putting legislation into work now, because we cannot no longer start reacting to things when they are actually implemented in our streetscapes. So I really hope that our politicians are actually starting to look a little bit more ahead than their next election period. So yes, to answer your question, it was a long ramble. We are indeed looking further for developing this concept into a mobility project together with IKEA and together with a car manufacturer. But actually, it's too early to say more. Sorry. But at the end of the day, I hope that self-driving cars will only be a small percentage of how we move from A to B in the future, and that we ban gasoline cars tomorrow. It's a pretty primitive technology that each of one needs 2 tons of steel to move around. But that's a personal opinion.
Yeah, no, just Katya asked for a question, and I'll ask you later.
Okay, hi Simon.
Hi, so good to see you.
Yeah, I'm a resident here now, and I was just presenting like by default right before you.
Nice, in for a treat.
Yeah, I was just thanking for the great presentation, and as usual, like amazing work. I had a question about actually a water management project, because I saw that you ran a residency with quite a lot of different like projects, but I just wonder what's your like main vision kind of on a water management and the future with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we are starting to dip our toes within that area, and as you know, Katja, better than most, we always start with what is a big problem for humanity, and try and find some solutions. So we are still in a quite early stage. We just know that we're going to run out of water. We already see now that a huge percentage of the world population experience water scarcity 1 month a year, and that population growth have basically been bigger than our water supplies. So one of the things that have really caught our interest right now at Space 10 is that we know on one hand a lot of privileged people, myself included, who are using way too much resources, whether that's energy, water, whatever, that we need to find new solutions to drastically bring that down. On the other hand, we also see that 50% of the world's population actually needs to be able to use 3 times the amount of resources as they do today to unleash their full potential. So I think what I'm really scared about is that we know that we need to rethink civilization right now in terms of how we do things, but it can't be on the cost of the people who we have already fucked over, who are right now not having access to energy, to clean water, to clean air, to nutritious food. So at Space 10 at the moment, we are sort of breaking up a little bit in two, where we on one hand looking at what are the solutions for the more privileged nations around. How can we create new solutions that drastically reduce our consumption? And how can we, on the other hand, unleash the full potential of the people who today don't have access to, let's say, energy, water, etc. So with the water as a theme, we are just starting now at the top of the funnel to really get a better understanding of what is this. We are speaking with experts within this field. We are starting to make early concepts, but even with our explorations within food, that started as a smart energy, smart water faucet in your shower that would start to glow when you've used too much water in the shower. And then we realized, okay, but even though you take super short cold showers, we're not fixing the water problem. The problem with water is within our food production system. So we could take cold showers, 2-minute cold showers, and then we could go down on the corner and eat a hamburger, and that single hamburger would be the equivalent of 3 months of showering. So even though it was a solution, it was not fixing the right problem. And this is where we are right now with the water, very much in the beginning of an exploration, looking at can we actually play a role here. So Katja, if when done with your residency in Venice, if you have ideas for how we solve the water challenge, then please connect.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simon. I have some. I'll talk to you later.
Wonderful. Love it.
No, for me, it's just a curiosity. Like you mentioned that you are discussing with China and Korea about the concept of housing and so on. So I'm just guessing if you're already in the prototyping step, or is still on paper, because of the fact that with the modularity and flexible housing or structures, it's difficult to manage the loads and so on. So I was just curious about the discussion that it's in.
Sure, and that's a super good question also, because I just want to be super clear that at least the conversations I've been in, for instance, in Seoul, they have built their version of the Urban Village project, but not through this construction method. So it's like, project developers are sort of taking bits and pieces, and we are not engaged with the project as owners of it. We simply just try to spread the gospel. So you're absolutely right. I think when we are talking about modular prefabricated architecture, it requires a big player. And that's also why we saw it as a huge opportunity for IKEA, because IKEA came around when people couldn't afford a well-designed home right after Second World War in Sweden. And that was really their business proposal was to side with the many people and allow more people to be able to afford a well-designed home. But the challenge today is not that people can't afford furniture. Today, people can't afford the home. So we asked IKEA, could the biggest business opportunity since flat packing furniture was actually to flat pack housing? And I mean, IKEA owns the entire value chain, from making sure that they have sustainable supply of wood all the way to the actual stores. So we just thought IKEA would be like a obvious player for going into this. But also, to be completely frank, like IKEA has been around for 80 years, and they have optimized and perfected the machine that they are running. And suddenly, us coming from the side and say, hey, what about homes? Let's actually make affordable, livable, and sustainable homes a reality for the many. That requires a bit more conversations. So I'm stubbornly optimistic, but we are not in a prototyping phase yet, unfortunately.
Thank you.
So about the modular system, I think it's great and it brings a lot of advantages. I think it's very interesting how you showed you can adapt it to different contexts and cities and climates, but I also think it brings a lot of limitations. I'm just wondering if you've considered how you can adapt the modules and the skin or the orientation of the building to promote natural ventilation or take advantage of sunlight, because I think that's a very important part of sustainability. So
yeah, for sure. And I think also with the Urban Village project, we haven't found the silver bullet. I mean, I think that when it comes to rapid urbanization and the affordable housing crisis and the climate emergency, these are long-term problems and they need long-term solutions. And I think everybody's looking for that quick fix, that quick solution where we say, okay, here it is, and then we just implement that. So you're absolutely right. Like right now, the Urban Village is a vision, and that's also why we're sharing it openly with the public to basically get challenged, because I completely agree there's a lot of things still to be figured out. And I think that's also why it's so important that we are in conversation today around what are we overlooking, what are we missing. But I think, however, that the good news about flexible architecture is that it can actually be adapted much more easy than the buildings that we build today, where everything is just fixed. But that's also why, I mean, we are very much believers in the whole open source ethos. So please build upon it, improve it, make it better, bring it to life, please.
Simon, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really interesting to see also how the research kind of evolved into the book and kind of different positionings. I also have a question regarding the modular system and a little bit more into kind of the cultural values that were kind of implemented into this modular system, because you mentioned that kind of the housing in the 60s had like a vision, and this one was a little bit more flexible in terms of how many people can live there and accommodate, but also there's kind of a cultural aspect in terms of transferring it to other locations. So I'm wondering if that was also an element in terms of the design.
Yeah, great question. And I just want to say that our partner in this project is an architecture firm called Effect Architecture. You should check them out. They do some really incredible work. But back to your question, definitely. I mean, there are a lot of limitations. Like, we were really fascinated by cross-laminated timber, a really sustainable material if done correctly. However, that might be very well suited for Europe and North America, but for Southeast Asia, we should maybe look at other materials like bamboo or other things that are locally abundant there. At the same time, we also realize that even though we can drive construction prices down, we are still facing a challenge when it comes to informal settlements, which is where a big part of humanity lives today, where people build out of again whatever is there. And I think when we talk about the future of architecture, I would love to complement the urban village project with something that is modular and flexible, but where it's not the entire gift wrapped building that is being implemented, but looking at how we can actually supply the minimum, where you can then add local materials and do basically a lot of the work yourself. I think that's the only way we come to a price point where it's actually accessible for a lot of the people that really needs it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm coming here because maybe you can't see me was hidden behind the screen. And I'm just going to try to formulate my question, but thanks so much for the presentation. And it was really interesting and inspiring, and it raised a lot of questions around even just the methodologies you use in terms of how you collect all these different knowledges together in order to just create your project. So, but maybe that's for another time. I think the question that I was just thinking of in relation to the urban village was why this centrality of the home in terms of the main architecture of the village. You mentioned also the issue of focusing on the nuclear family, and of course we know that there are many different social constructions that go beyond the nuclear family. And so if you thought, and maybe you have it in our project, around about what other sort of structures are part of this urban village. So maybe we don't need more homes, but we need more, I don't know, shared spaces or a communal kitchen or like other ways of socializing. So I think my questions is twofold. On the one hand, if you've thought about these other, let's say, sort of infrastructures, and if you see, and the second one is if you see, let's say, a limitation in focusing on just the home as, let's say, what we need to build now. Do we need more homes, or do we need to basically redefine spaces that we already have?
Yeah, two good questions. To answer the second one first, yes, we of course need to retrofit our current built environment. I'm not proposing that it's more sustainable to build new than to make use of what's already there. Absolutely not. But we can also see that with the rapid urbanization taking place, where 2 billion people are going to move into cities, we don't have sufficient housing for that. And that's, I mean, is going to be especially relevant in Asia, in Africa and Latin America, where 90% of the urbanization is going to take place over the coming years. So for sure, I'm not proposing that that we should just build new. We should definitely make use of what we already have. However, we are not building enough affordable housing to keep up with the demand, and we don't have enough housing today in our current built environment either. Actually, I heard that we need to expand our built environment with 40% within the next 3 decades, which is basically equivalent of building a city the size of Paris every second month for the next 30 years. So the challenge is quite big, and that's also why we can't afford to have this extractive model that we have today, because then we're simply pretty fucked as a species. To your second question, the Urban Village project was actually thought of a shared living community where people have private homes, but that everything is available in your community. So everything you touch upon, from groceries to pharmacies to whatever you need on a daily basis, should be available. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we have made in the whole era of modernist architecture was basically designing cities for cars, and then we can all live in these suburban areas, and then we have to drive everywhere to get what we need on a daily basis. So I would actually urge you to check out the website, because we put quite a lot of focus on ensuring that everything is available within your community, because that's really what's going to unlock a lot of the sustainability issues, because we can't just look at the materials, we also need to look at behavior. No matter how sustainably we build, if people need to drive everywhere to get to what they need, we end up at the same place. So check out the project, because it has actually been quite a focus, and that's also why we're not looking just as housing as we see today, but intentional communities where we actually share more. So instead of everyone having to, for instance, store that drill that is used for that one time a year job, why don't we just share drill among all of us? And that's like a very little example, but we have so much opportunity to share a lot more, so we don't use our sacred space to store a lot of items that we never use. Plus, we would actually be able to get a lot better things if we pooled resources.
Absolutely. One more thing? Yes. Okay, one last question.
Thank you. Just one question in terms of kind of like the rapid urbanization that we need. Like in many places, usually the response is like completely architectural. But I was wondering if you had like any like policy making, or just more in terms of kind of talking to mandatories of different cities, or simply checking at the policies, if that will be another kind of alternative, because kind of the architectural product, I think, is somehow, yeah, it can be A or B, but the policy of affordable housing or livability in cities, I think it can be a kind of a first question.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of architects likes to see themselves as the solver of the crisis of humanity, but there's only so much that you can do as an architect. It's down to the developers at the end of the day. It's down to the money and the short-term investors that are really at the root of the problem as well, and then policymakers. And I think we should meet for another talk around the politics, because you're absolutely right. That is the way that we can basically solve the things that we are facing right now, not only within city development, but we need some progressive politicians that think a lot more long-term. And at the end of the day, who elects those politicians are the people. So that's also why I think it's really important that we have conversations about what needs to be done in order to actually put pressure on the people in power. But you're absolutely right. This is not going to happen by itself. We need both top-down and bottom-up approaches to this. And yeah, politicians play a crucial. They are a crucial part of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, like you said, maybe this is the beginning of hopefully many conversations, and perhaps we can engage with you again, especially as the book develops. And I really want to check out your new book, and yeah, we'll definitely be in touch as this project here develops too. And I hope that you'll follow along as our research unfolds over this year. I just want to say thank you so much for your time and for sharing this important research and work with us and for being part of this project. So thank you.
Thank you. And just want to say thank you as well for the invitation, and to Saurith and Katja and the people in the room for asking questions. It's a pleasure, and let's for sure keep in contact. It was a pleasure.
Great. Thank you, Simon. Ciao.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.